back. Today we're live, so let's get right to more topics. Part 3 of The Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion aired on Sunday. One of its stars, Phaedra Parks' husband, is in jail for bank fraud and identity theft. And Parks, at this point, has not filed any divorce paperwork. But during the episode, she talked about not taking her young sons, they're 5 and 2 years of age, to visit her husband, their dad, in prison. And John, I know this episode struck a real chord with you.
Yeah, and I know Phaedra. Phaedra's a friend. As a child, I grew up with my father in prison. He was gone 17 years, and my mom wouldn't allow me to go visit him because she said she didn't want me to think that prison culture was normal. She didn't want me to be sensitized to that, and that I would think that that was okay. And so that's pretty much the posture that Phaedra has with her young boys. She does not want them to think that it's okay to visit daddy in prison, and if daddy wants to have a healthy relationship with his boys, he should be committing bank fraud and other illegal activity.
Well, here's the thing that I'll say with Phaedra, and I definitely don't want to get on the wrong side of her, because Phaedra's very protective about her image, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to disrespect her, but the problem I think most people see with that is that she married a man that came out of prison, so you have to expect that that may happen again. It's like, don't be hypocritical.
But if I may add one more point, there are lots of stories of redemption. I mean, Judge Greg Mathis, Chef Jeff Henderson, a lot of people who started out going to prison as a young age and then redeeming themselves and becoming law-abiding citizens. So if you see the benefit of doubting somebody, you love them and you believe in them, you hope that they don't go back to the life that Apollo went to.
I think that, and we have that in common as far as my father was incarcerated most of my childhood. And, I'm blessed to have had his parents, my grandma and my grandpa Pickler, they took me to visit my dad every weekend. And I'm so blessed to have been able to have that time. And I understand where, for me, that was normal to me. But that was just the way things were.
I don't know.
I couldn't imagine, and I don't know their story. I don't watch the show. I don't know what's going on.
Did your dad turn his life around?
Yeah, we all stump our toe, and it's been tough. It's been hard, but I think there has to be boundaries, and you have to I don't know. I'm very forgiving. And I think you have to have grace for people. It's not making excuses, but you have to, at some point, have grace. And my mother was not around, and so my father, when he was not incarcerated, he raised me.
Right.
And he was there when.
If I can add one more thing, my father did go back a second time as an adult. And I applied my mother's rule for the 6 years that he went back. I could communicate, because you already have cable, you got internet. I mean, prison is like a country club now. So my whole thing is, the one thing you won't have is a relationship with your son if you choose to live a life of crime. Now, he's out now, he's been doing exceptionally well, we have a great relationship. But he knows that if he decides to slip up again, this is the one number he won't call collect.
See, I don't know.
Okay. I don't agree with that either.
Where I come down. I mean, I put a lot of people in jail, right?
Different.
Yeah. But I spent a lot of my career putting a lot of people in jail, a lot of men in jail. But I realize now that, 1 in 3 children, 15 million as of, I think, 2014, grow up in America without their father. And we see, I think, the effects of that. And so if as a mother, you can make sure that your child has a relationship with their father, even if it's seeing him in prison and saying, this is what you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's the best.
There's also a lot of statistics that show that, particularly as a black male, I mean, the disproportionate number of us that are in prison, the one thing a black mother doesn't want a son to get used to is going to prison. So I'm blessed to say that I've never been to prison, whether to visit my father or on my own.
Okay.
I think everyone's situation is different. Everybody's situation is different. I totally understand exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And you've been blessed by your situation.
I learned what not to do, by going there and seeing you will be held accountable for your actions. Eventually, it catches up with you.
I was trying to get my daddy to go to prison because he would get on my nerves sometimes. It was like the reverse. You going to jail yet? What's going on?
But that was normal for me growing up.
Up next, more What's Hot Live topics with this lively panel. We'll be right back.
Coming up, why Empire creator Lee Daniels is stirring up controversy with what goes on behind the scenes of his hit show.
Talking about what's hot live, Lee Daniels, co-creator of the hit Fox show Empire, made some statements in the May issue of The Hollywood Reporter that have raised some eyebrows. When asked about the pressure to use diverse writers and talent, he said, "I hate white people writing for black people. It's so offensive. So we go out and look specifically for African-American voices. Yes, it is all about reverse racism." And John, I think you spoke to Lee just a few minutes ago, right?
I called Lee right before the show. Because, you know, everything with Lee is a little bit extreme. If you've seen his movies or his TV shows, everything is extreme and broad with him. And I wanted to make sure some things don't always translate in print. So what Lee was trying to convey in that statement was that ever since shows like The Jeffersons and Good Times, very significant black stories on television, all of those shows had white writers. And he feels like that there's always been this disconnect between the talent, the story, and the writers. And he said that even now in contemporary times, you know, he has a show called Empire. He's one of the only shows on Fox that has black writers. So he was trying to say that for years, this has been the challenge that we've faced in Hollywood. So if I'm applying reverse racism, it's exactly what I'm doing because I'm sensitive about this story and I want it to be told effectively. So he didn't mean it to be offensive,
so
but it was something that he was trying to explain in the context of the conversation that he was having with white writers.
Yeah, and he was frustrated even with those writers, current day, about the few African-American writers that are available out there.
But I'm troubled, quite frankly, by the notion that a white writer can't write on a black show. And I'm troubled by the notion that a black writer can't write for a white show. That is troubling to me because we all have different perspectives about the American experience. And so why aren't there more white writers on, you know, an African-American show?
And I don't disagree with that at all. Diversity is a challenge in Hollywood, period.
Right.
And so I think Lee's point is, if I could take the biggest show on TV right now and blacken up the writing staff, then at least I could set these people up so that when they go on to other shows, you'll respect them from where they came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the problem is that we're still having this conversation, and that's why it's coming up. It's like there is this stigma. And I think what disheartens me a lot is that we always focus when it's a minority show, what's going on with that minority show, instead of looking on the other side, why isn't there more diversity coming across that way?
I know backstage we were joking about something totally different, but Yamanika and I have never seen Friends. We've never watched that sitcom because none of the friends on Friends look like us. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Diversity's always been a challenge in Hollywood.
Well, it's funny, when I started in the business in Providence, Rhode Island, I was billed as the Portuguese American reporter because there were a lot of Portuguese, particularly fishermen, and they sent me to do a story. And I go to this bar, and they're all speaking Portuguese, and I call into my boss. He said, "What are they talking about? What's going on?" I said, "I don't know. I don't speak Portuguese." The assumption was, well, you're Portuguese American, so you must speak for your people. But it didn't quite work out that way. Exactly. All right, moving on. You've heard that expression. Whoops. Before we go, oh, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. So before we go, Kelly, you've joined forces with the American Lung Association for a very important cause. What is the Lung Force movement?
Oh, thank you so much for asking.
Sure.
First of all, I mentioned my grandmother earlier. She was diagnosed with lung cancer and passed away the next day.
Which is unbelievable.
So I'm so happy to be partnered with the American Lung Association for their movement, Lung Force. It's amazing what they do. You can go to lungforce.org and see this amazing video we just posted with other cancer survivors, lung cancer survivors. They're sharing their stories. You can share your story on Twitter, Facebook, hashtag share your voice, and make a difference.
And try to wear turquoise today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer for women, which I was shocked. Yeah. Very shocked to know that. And that you do not have to be a smoker.
Exactly. Valerie Harper's a great example of somebody who never smoked. And her mom, lung cancer, and hers then...
It's hereditary.
Went to the brain, so it's a frightening illness.
And I love her. She always, she makes this comment, and I'm going to try to say it exactly the way she does, that if you have lungs, then you are at risk for lung cancer. So,
So thank you for raising awareness.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks to all of our wonderful panelists. We'll be right back.